Stood right here during the show. It's very odd. Ominous, if nothing else. Good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Strategy Show. Hold on a second. Alexa, basement lights to 100. See that back there? That's a there we go. We're in business now, baby. Let's go.
Well, you got a productive wife.
Yeah, she just sits down here with the remote in case something happens. Alexa's, they're such crap though. They really are. Like compared to the AI you have now, and they want you to upgrade to the plus, but it's like, no, why would I even bother? I just need you for the lights and for Christmas music for my kids in the living room. But this is the strategy show, Sim Strategy Show, and we're about to have some fun with this one. Still a lot of unknowns. Like there's no doubt there's a lot of uncertainty here when it comes to injury reports. I mean, that's Greg Ehrenberg. He needs no introduction. But if you look at some of these, Greg, it's coming into Friday now. There's so many guys that are limited, but limited doesn't really mean much at this point. And I think we have a good understanding of who's not going to play. Like Marvin Harrison's already ruled out. There's a few of these guys. There's a few other spots where like Josh Jacobs might actually play. I don't think he does, but he might. You know, he was limited yesterday, and Joe Burrow, the Bengals went from 8.5-point dogs down to 5.5-point dogs yet, but we don't have any real clarification there. Isaiah Pacheco, the list kind of goes on. So we'll tentatively approach this one, understanding that things could change, but I think we'll still have a decent idea of where exposures are going to land.
Yeah, and we'll get a little bit more information Saturday night, what is going to end up happening with some of these spots. Like, is Joe Burrow going to start a quarterback for the Bengals? It seems to be trending that way, but it's certainly not a guarantee. And then, like you said, when we did the show on Wednesday, I was pretty certain that Josh Jacobs wasn't going to play. I still don't think he's going to play, but he's a better chance now than he did earlier in the week. So it's definitely little things like that well, I shouldn't say little things like that. It's big items like that are going to potentially massively change who we end up getting exposure to.
Yeah, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, I assume that's you and you just lost the name. Can't wait for Lofty to answer his first question with yes and no. Yeah, Jeff, you were the one saying last week where me taking a stand on Allen. And you're like, oh, taking a stand on Allen. This guy's got real balls. Didn't Allen end up being like 5% owned?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Come on now, Jeff. But glad to have you guys here. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second, atone for your sins this fine morning or afternoon, evening, wherever it is you may be watching, whenever it is you may be watching. He was 7% in the main Millie. But yeah, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way. We appreciate you for it in advance. And let's get into it, man. So
other Jeff.
Oh, there it is. Hey. Okay.
It is confusing. YouTube does this every, I don't know.
No, but Jeff Williams popped up and says wrong Jeff. It was Jeff Williams.
Yeah. So, so in your defense also, and people bring this up in the chat, every few months or so, for whatever reason, YouTube changes everybody's names to a bunch of numbers. And then it's just like, oh, which Jeff is this? If you guys want to change it, go into your settings in your YouTube name and you could change it. That's what I had to do with mine. But yeah, it is annoying.
I wonder what I show up as. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's different. Dave Logan 729. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't either. You got to go into the settings in your YouTube account and change it.
Anyway, to Jeff L6717, to Jeff Williams 6089, to Rance F8T, and Sam Vice 2563. All of you guys, good morning, and everyone who's maybe watching later. 11 game slate. I actually think this is one where quarterbacks, man, if you were to ask me how many quarterbacks do I want to get to, there's probably, I'd say 5 or 6 of them that I really like this week. Like, there's 5 or 6 quarterbacks that I really like, which is a little scary because there's 6 or 7 or 7 or 8 that you could probably put into the conversation as well. We can dive right into it here, Greg. Look at the exposure, see what we've got right now. Like I mentioned, we're still waiting on some updates. This will this will come. We still don't have clarity in a lot of spots. But like the Flacco exposure, it looks, at least based on the line right now, like Joe Burrow is going to start.
Yeah. So also what we saw in practice yesterday, Joe Burrow practiced with the starters, and Joe Burrow practiced with the starters. Joe Flacco practiced with the backups. Also an indication that it's more likely to be Joe Burrow than Joe Flacco this weekend. So I tend to think it's more likely to be Burrow. It's not set in stone. We've got it as Flacco in our projections right now. So obviously it's something that could really massively change. But one thing that does really stand out to me, Joe Burrow is underpriced if he's going to be the quarterback this week. I know there's no Jamar Chase, but a $6,500 price tag on Joe Burrow, that's a few $100s cheaper than he should be.
I actually disagree.
Okay.
So this is a fun way to start the show. I think it feels like they're rushing him back. I mean, realistically, this is going to sound crazy, but, and I tweeted this yesterday. It's like, it's nice that Joe Burrow is coming back, but this team scored 38 plus points in back-to-back games and lost both of them. The offense hasn't really even been the problem. You know, like if you look at Joe Flacco against Pittsburgh, he threw for 342 and had 3 touchdowns. He was 4,900. He was 5,400. He threw for 223 and 2 with a rushing touchdown, had 24 fantasy points. The following week against the Bears, he had 4 touchdowns and 470 yards at 5,600. So, I mean, yeah, you could say Burrow's underpriced. I guess he is, but I don't know. You take Jamar Chase out of the equation. T. Higgins is probably going to see a lot of Christian Gonzalez, and it's his first game back since what, like week 3 or something, against a pretty decent defense. I don't know. I'm a little bit less optimistic about Burrow in this specific game. I would have been more, this sounds wild, but I would have been more inclined to play Joe Flacco at 5,500 than Joe Burrow at 6,500, given that he's returning from injury.
Yeah. So it's not to say that I think that Flacco would be a poor option if he starts. I just want to play Joe Burrow if he does start. So one thing that I personally always like to look at is historical pricing for players. So if a guy comes back from injury, it's kind of hard to know, like, hey, where does this guy stand? Where should he be priced? Well, week 1 of the season, Joe Burrow was $6,900. And then if you go ahead and you look at his salaries from last year, it was primarily in the high 6K to low 7K range. And that's something that I like to use for myself as a barometer for just where do I think I should be when they come back from injury. And as long as it doesn't have any kind of restrictions, like we don't find out that like, hey, Joe Burrow isn't going to be allowed to run or something like that would be a red flag. If he is starting and he is 100%, then I think the $6,500 price tag is a few $100s too cheap for him. And that would be enough for me to say like, hey, I think he's a little bit underpriced and there's a little bit of value to his salary.
Okay. I mean, I think the absence of Chase makes a difference, but how would you rank him then among May, Mahomes, Jackson, Hurts, and Prescott? All those guys are within $500. Actually, you could throw Jared Goff into the mix as well, because Joe Burrow's like pretty much smack in the middle of all of those guys. So you have 6 other viable guys in the 6K range, from 6K flat up to 6,900. Where would you place a guy like Burrow?
Yeah, so the one thing that makes this really tricky is we don't have ownership on him, and that would really change potentially how I view him. Because if he's going to be 1 or 2% owned because he's just coming back from injury, then I feel better about him than say he is going to be like 10% owned or something like that. So that is like one caveat to add to this. But considering what we currently have as far as information goes, let's see, if we're ranking all of these guys relative to ownership, it's hard to not have Mahomes 1 for now, just because our data loves him so much. If you don't make any change, you guys will see here, Mahomes is showing up in a third of the field's lineup. So for me, like Mahomes kind of has to be at the top. Number 2 for me would be Jalen Hurts, and then probably 3 would be Joe Burrow.
Okay. You'd put him over May?
Yeah, mostly because I don't really know who I want to stack May with. I feel much more confident that if Joe Burrow has a good game, T. Higgins is probably going to have a big game also. And then you could also pair him with like Yoshi Boss or something as another value wide receiver. So I do think that the overall stack for, even though obviously the match, like Drake May is going up against this terrible Bengals defense, the matchup is better. I just think the stack is easier to figure out for Joe Burrow if he has a big game.
Okay. I'd probably put him behind, God, I don't know, Mahomes, May, Lamar. I'd probably put him at the bottom. It's not like their team total's bad. It's 23 points. That's not bad. But, the Eagles are 25. The Chiefs are 27. The Patriots are 28.5. The Lions are 30. The Ravens are 29. The Cowboys are below him at 22.5. But I also think Dak at home is a sneaky spot. Like, I think Dak could go low owned, and that makes it interesting. But all right. So, yeah, look, I get what you're saying. I wish they didn't preemptively price T. Higgins up. I can tell you that much. Like, they priced T. Higgins up $1,100 after last week, and that kind of sucks. But, yeah, Rance, I hear you. I do think Hurts with those weapons, we say he needs to do something. He doesn't, unfortunately doesn't. Yeah, well, actually, the funny thing, Rance, and you may not have meant this, Hurts hasn't actually needed to do anything over the last couple of weeks because the defense is a juggernaut. But I think Dak provides a very different and more difficult matchup at home, Greg. It's a divisional spot. Like, I understand Quinyon Mitchell's phenomenal. Cooper DeJean, they just brought in Carter. So now maybe they'll play DeJean outside a little bit more. Put Carter in the slot. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean's healthy. All of the Nolan Smith is healthy. They brought Jalen Phillips in, who's made an immediate impact through 2 games. It's a very good defense. There's no doubt about it. However, I sometimes think a matchup like this can supersede all of that. And I like Dak, and I would not be surprised to see this Dallas team force the Philadelphia offense to move the ball more. And the price points on Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, who had another idiotic press interview in the locker room, and Dallas Goedert, they're too cheap to ignore.
Yeah, we were building lineups for the single lineup sim show on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure the first lineup that I wanted to build was the Jalen Hurts double stack with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith.
Yeah,
it's a great matchup against the Cowboys. And I do think that all of this drama surrounding the team is going to probably suppress ownership a little bit. There's a lot of, like you and I were talking about the other day, a lot of just general negative vibes and bias around the Eagles right now. And if we go ahead and look at what we have now for our updated projections for the Eagles, you'll see that we've got here Jalen Hurts 7% now, but 13% Saquon Barkley, 12% AJ Brown at $5,900. Devonta Smith is 13% owned at $5,600. They play to level their competition a lot. If they only need to score 10 points to win, they're often going to score 10 points to win, do the bare minimum, nothing more. But there is such shootout potential against the Cowboys that I want to play for the GPP upside here. I think that these players, relative to their ceilings, could definitely be more expensive than what they are, and the field just doesn't really want to seem to get there right now. So for tournament purposes, I really like taking shots on really all of these guys. Barkley, Hurts, Brown, Smith, and Goddard. All of them I'm going to be overweight to.
Hey, what does Dallas exposure look like?
Let's see. Pretty minimal.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I get it because CeeDee Lamb is in a sea of other, like he's mixed amongst a sea of other really good receivers. Rashee Rice this week, who, for what it's worth, like the Rashee Rice matchup, the matchup against the Colts secondary is not that good. Right? Like you have Sauce Gardner now. That's, I'd say, pretty significant. I don't know if Travarius Ward is returning. If he is, that's going to be very interesting. Let me see if he's coming back. Full practice. So yeah, that is a real. Tre'Davious Ward's a former Chief, by the way. Most of you guys know that, and he was dominant in Kansas City. Oh man, that's the reason this is a bit more of a forgiving matchup than it was against Denver is just because Denver's pass rush is crazy. And they can just get to Mahomes and they don't have to rush 5, but this definitely is a tough matchup for Mahomes and Rashee Rice. I mean, I think it's possible that CeeDee Lamb, granted, tough matchup for him as well, no doubt about it, but could make for an interesting pivot. We saw in week 1, if he didn't drop those 2 passes, I mean, it's just a huge game for him. So, yeah, Sam, how is the spread only 3 for this game? I bet the Cowboys at plus 3.5. It's 3 now, but I bet the Cowboys at plus 3.5 in a spot like this. Brandon, any chance Cowboys defense actually improve with the deadline moves? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you don't add a player like Quinnen Williams to get worse as a result of it. The question is, does it mean that opposing offenses, for DFS purposes at least, does it mean that opposing offenses don't still have upside
Definitely
against
not.
the Cowboys? Yeah, I mean, the total for the game is still 47.5 and juice towards the over. So it doesn't make them as they started the year historically bad. The Cowboys team, they're giving up 450 yards to Russell Wilson, who's getting benched the next week because he sucks at football. That's probably something we're not going to see that poor caliber from the Cowboys defense anymore. But still, with that said, I don't think this is all of a sudden a great defense either because they added Quinnen to the mix. I think it just makes them a little bit better.
Yep. Muhammad, better matchup for Kelsey. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Like if you had some Mahomes to Kelsey stacks, I definitely like that. It's a weird spot to me, Greg, because I'm looking at our exposure right now. We have a lot of Patrick Mahomes. And on one hand, I totally understand. This is a team that needs to win this game. And Patrick Mahomes is a very good quarterback, especially when he has a little bit of time in the pocket. So I saw something, I think it was actually Dan Orlovsky, that made a really good point about this matchup with Denver that I hadn't really thought of all that much until he made it last week. And he's saying, like, Patrick Mahomes is amazing at being able to, kind of elude that pressure and create plays out of nothing, right? Just improvised plays. But Denver doesn't allow you the opportunity to do that. It was a good example of that too? Last night, Houston. That was the most tenacious pass rush that I've seen all season long, dude. They sacked Josh Allen 8 times, and he would try to roll out this way and scramble. And there were 2 guys there, and then he would turn around, and then there were two more red jerseys. He had nowhere to go. They swarmed him like I haven't seen in a very long time. Will Anderson on one side, Danielle Hunter on the other. He couldn't do anything. And that's what a lot of that game felt like for the Chiefs last week. If you have better pass blocking, I still think Patrick Mahomes will be able to operate, even though it's a tough matchup. That's at least my hope.
Yeah, but just tangentially related. Will Anderson might be a dark horse to win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
He's insane.
He's been ridiculously good, and it does seem like anytime I'm watching any Texans game, he's massively disruptive. But yeah, I don't disagree.
So, what do you make of just before can we go to stack exposures?
Yeah. So, like we were talking about with Patrick Mahomes and all the lineups that he's showing up in, one thing that is of note, though, it's almost all single and double stacks. 16% of Patrick Mahomes as a skinny stack, 14% as a double stack. There's some triple stacks, them 3%. In general, we're not getting to very many of triple stacks this week. There's just a few Patrick Mahomes, a few Joe Flacco, which those very likely may not exist this afternoon if we get a practice report on Joe Burrow that changes our projections and we put Burrow in. But if we look at the double stacks, you'll see here Mahomes 14%, Brissett 8%. We've got Jackson Dart, who now is trending towards playing in 5% of lineups, 5% of Hurts and May as a double stack. And then the single stacks, it's mostly Mahomes, Brissett, a little bit of Darnold there, which I assume is with JSN.
Okay. Yeah, and we don't know if Dart's actually going to play, by the way. He was a non-contact participant yesterday in practice. So I think there's actually a real possibility that he's not out there, especially now that the season is over. Jake says Mahomes is never the answer. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I mean, Mahomes has been a lot different this season. Like
I mean, I would argue over the course of his career, he's more likely been the answer than not the answer. He's certainly not never the answer.
No, right. He had a 5-game stretch this year, just looking at DraftKings points, because at the end of the day, that is actually all that matters. 27, 31, 31, 26, 25. That's 25 plus and 5 straight. He's been way better than he was last year. The game against Buffalo was an obvious game where Buffalo could roll there, and last night, by the way, Gabe Davis had that target near the goal line at the end of the game, Greg. I thought we were going to get it. Did you see it?
Yeah. So I was conflicted because I ended up betting the Texans money line yesterday also. So I had the Texans money line, but also the Gabe Davis, the jackpot touchdown that you and I had talked about. And I didn't know which one the payout was going to be better on. So like, obviously he doesn't catch the touchdown when Allen targets him to potentially win the game towards the end. And then I just spent the rest of the night thinking, did I want him to catch, as if I had any control over him. So like, was I rooting for the right outcome, as if that mattered at all?
Right. For sure. Yeah. I bet the Texans +6, but I didn't get the money line. Nice bet on the money line. But
which also I bet it for the dumbest reason. There
was the number.
So there was a point in time where it looked like CJ Stroud was going to play early in the week, and I was able to get a stale number on the Texans where a lot of the books were moving it. So a lot of books had moved the Texans money line to like +180, +190, around that area, and DraftKings had left it at +225. So I was like, hey, getting a little bit of a good line movement here because it looks like CJ Stroud is going to play. So I bet it because I thought CJ Stroud was going to play. He didn't end up playing. And then I also came out of the game wondering if CJ Stroud should even be the Texans quarterback the rest of the year.
I've been saying that since the first game. I've been saying it since the first game Davis Mills took over. He's great. He's not that bad. Like, I'm not saying he's good. And if he ended up being their starting quarterback long-term, everyone would grow very tired of him. No doubt about it. But he's not that big of a downgrade. I don't know. But anyway, nice win, regardless of what you did. Nice win.
Yeah, it was totally lucky. I did put a poll up on my Twitter last night and just said who should be the Texans starting quarterback moving forward, Stroud or Mills. 54% of people said Mills and 46% of people said Stroud. So it was very split.
Yeah, I mean, they're wrong. Like, it should still be Stroud, right? Because he's a franchise quarterback you drafted early. You have to stick with Stroud. It's just right now, I don't think it's that big of a difference. Also, the offensive line has played way better. Give some credit to the offensive line. Somebody asked if we do start-sit questions in here. No, but if it's like a 1v1 or a 2v2, go ahead, ask away. But don't give me like the 5v5 or something like that. We don't have time for that. But happy to otherwise hit you up with that. All right, let's take a look at running backs here, and then we'll take a peek at what these lineups look like. So I assume it's just going to be a lot of Alvin Kamara, and right now, and Chase Brown, my God. Full transparency, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do like 4 uniques or something so we can see what it looks like?
Yeah, we can do that.
Full transparency. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's unfavorite these. We'll change it to 4 uniques and see what this change is. And also, just so you guys know, if you are going to use the uniques, you have to have them a little bit higher for the main slates than, say, like a showdown. If you put it on 2 uniques, sometimes even 3 uniques, it's not going to change anything for a main slate because there's so many lineup different possibilities.
Yeah, you got to go, honestly, 4 or 5. Sometimes you could even go 6. But this will at least 10. Wow, that's crazy that Brown is. What happens if you go to 5? Just curious. Because he dropped 2%.
Let's see if we go to 5. What do we end up getting? With 5, we have 74% of Chase Brown. That brings us down to 18% of Patrick Mahomes.
And for what it's worth, our Flacco and Burrow conversation earlier, I still think that if Burrow starts, I do still think it's beneficial for guys like Jamar Chase. I'm sorry, Chase Brown. I really do. So I get why we'd be seeing a lot of that. I want to talk to you about Alvin Kamara for a second, though, because on one hand, and I think we mentioned this on Wednesday, but not everyone watches all of these shows, although they should. The thing about Alvin Kamara, the guy hasn't scored since week 1. And Taysom Hill was out most of those games. Like, right? Didn't Taysom Hill miss 6 games or something, or 5 games or whatever it is? And he still had 1 touchdown. I know you had Kendre Miller in there and stuff, and he's out now, and Devin Neal isn't very good. But, it is still a low octane offense. It is a good matchup, and Kamara's coming off a 25 touch game, and now they're coming out of the bye. So I think all of that stuff is really good. They have a 21.5 point total, which is perfectly fine. There's just like the touchdown equity for a player on a team like this, especially given that they haven't used him in the passing game nearly as much as we've seen in the past. Like, I could pull it up. I'll bet you Alvin Kamara's, I'll bet you that his target share has got to be just way lower than it's been in previous years. And that's another thing that kind of scares me a little bit. Like, on the year, he has a, hold on real quick. Okay, I got it pulled up right here. So on the season, Alvin Kamara's target share is 11%, man. And Rashid Shaheed's gone. He was at 22%. Fine. But that's a little concerning, no? When you consider that last year you're talking about a guy who was targeted heavily in the passing game. You were seeing some monster games, and he had a much higher target share.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things going on here. For starters, the Saints quarterback play is mostly incompetent. The team sucks. Alvin Kamara is older. Chris Olave is back too. Olave is
good point. Him and
like,
Rashid were both out a lot, right? Last year?
Yeah. Shaheed tore his ACL last year. Olave had an amount of concussions that nobody could possibly count. It would be just mass amounts of research and arithmetic involved to figure out how many times Chris Olave was knocked unconscious on a football field last year. So you just had all these times that the Saints were shorthanded. They had nobody else to throw the ball to other than Alvin Kamara. So I get why his target share would be way elevated last year compared to this year, but he's also just pretty washed at this point. So I made all the negatives for Alvin Kamara, but here's the positives now and why he's someone I'm going to end up playing for this slate. He's $5,500, and the running back options are not overwhelmingly great for this slate either. Like, if you look at our projections, we don't have a Christian McCaffrey that's projecting for 27 fantasy points like we had a week ago. We've got good projections on Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Chase Brown, but it's not the same as what we had a week ago, especially not at the high end there. So with the options being a little bit more limited, and then you also consider that Alvin Kamara, his ownership is now 10%. That's pretty modest. I don't mind the matchup he has against the Falcons either. It's going to be a game in a dome. But also, he is now $5,500. Emmanuel Wilson is $5,300. Presumably starting in place of Josh Jacobs, TBD if Jacobs ends up playing. Alvin Kamara is just kind of priced like a backup running back that's taking over as a starter.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just very weird to see that this guy since 2021 has had a target share around 20%, and now it's at 11%. He has 0 20-plus yard runs this year. And I know that he's not like ever necessarily been that type of guy, but it's just like you have to get there on volume if you're a guy like Alvin Kamara. That's just the way it is. I don't know. He has 2 20-plus yard receptions, which is nice, I suppose, but he's just ineffective at this stage of his career. And I guess we'll see here. I guess we'll see. But yeah, his long on the season is 18 yards. Atlanta has just been a bad team right now, but I don't know, 55, it feels like a trap. Feels like a trap.
Maybe if he was popular, I'd feel that way, but 10%, he's somewhat contrarian. Another thing too, Tyler Shuck, this is going to be his 4th career game now, 3rd career start. He's progressively looked better in each of those outings, which makes sense for a young rookie quarterback. He played really well against the Saints last week. 27 pass attempts, completed 19 of them for 282 yards. His pass rating was 128.9 in that game. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So we have no clue what he is. Most likely he's going to be bad. But I think that there's a chance that he ends up being competent. It's more so, and to me, it's just buy low on Alvin Kamara. The price point is low. The ownership is low. there just comes a salary and an ownership that we should all be willing to play. And like people in chat who understand, like, hey, just don't like playing Alvin Kamara, which I think is totally reasonable. But would you play him at $3,000, $4,000? Like there's a certain breaking point where you would play him. For me, it's 10% owned at 5,500.
Yep, I get it. Man, he has 2 goal line carries this year.
The team may have never been at the goal line the entire season, though.
I know. It's nuts. You know what else is terrifying? Kareem Hunt. Like that's a spot where 5,100. I'm going to be interested to see what these builds look like, because I probably also have a very tough time getting to that much Kareem Hunt. I mean, he is insanely touchdown dependent.
He is. He's also pretty cheap at 5,100. I'm going to make an educated guess here. I'll go to our lineups. I'll go to our favorites tab, actually. I'm going to make an educated guess that our Kareem Hunt lineups are mostly going to be in Mahomes stacks. And I would be wrong. Some of them are with Mahomes, but it's not that many. He just kind of, I wonder, do you remember what was the amount of exposure we're getting to Hunt before we did the uniques?
It was still up there. I don't remember, but it was up there. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious now. Before the uniques, yep, still was. It didn't even change that much. It was, Oh, actually, wait, I messed up. I have to unfavorite all these and then favorite it again. Let's see. So the number is on Kareem Hunt. Yes, actually, even more of them without the uniques, 28% of him.
It's a lot. The 5K range isn't great. I mean, if you wanted to go and try David Montgomery, I think this is probably the week to do it. He's 5,300. You mentioned Emmanuel Wilson if Josh Jacobs is out. You have Kareem Hunt. I don't want Tony Pollard against Seattle. You know, Kenneth Walker is at the very least interesting. Kenneth Walker to me could end up being the guy that breaks the slate. I kid you not, man. Like, and just nobody ends up playing him. He's 6%. We're getting 3% right now. I understand. I could give you a lot of negatives on Kenneth Walker too. Typically you can when these guys are down in this price range, but you know, he's still got a matchup against the team that's allowed a lot of rushing touchdowns. Jeffrey Simmons being back kind of sucks, but he's just so much more efficient on the ground than Zach Charbonnet. Not that they care, but it feels like the type of spot where Kenneth Walker has been dormant all season for the most part, outside of a game or two. I like to throw these out there just so we have it on the table, because I likely will boost him a little bit, especially given that I'm not supremely confident in Kamara, who has very little touchdown equity, and Kareem Hunt, who is entirely touchdown dependent. I don't think either of them are bad plays, by the way, assuming Pacheco's out. I just think I would actually like to get a little over the field on somebody like Kenneth Walker at a very comparable price point. Now, your argument could be, well, Kamara and Hunt are basically the same ownership. And sure, that's fine. But I also, looking at being that overweight, like 3x the field on Kamara and then 4x the field on Kareem Hunt, and being half the field on Kenneth Walker, that feels like a spot as a 13.5 point favorite. And the other reason for this, I was talking to Spags about it the other day, and it didn't come to fruition, but the whole Javonte Williams in a tough matchup because the Ravens run defense isn't bad. There was a world there, Greg, where Javonte Williams just has 3 touchdowns from the goal line, kind of like Trevion Williams against the Jets, right? You and I talked extensively about that. You could just see a spot where Kenneth Walker doesn't have the most efficient game, but they just get to the goal line so often and he ends up punching 2 of them in. So 5,400 to me feels like a spot that I'm actually willing to get on board with.
The other thing that's nice about Kenneth Walker is even though he's in this timeshare with Zach Charbonnet, they find a way to get both of them
a lot of touches,
a decent amount of touches, like more than you would think for a time split in the backfield. Last week, a game that was not massively high scoring against the Rams, they lost 21-19, and Darnold threw 4 interceptions. Kenneth Walker had 16 carries and 3 receptions. The week before against the Cardinals, this was a much higher scoring game, 44-22, with a lot more possessions involved still. 14 carries and a reception for Kenneth Walker. Over the course of the last month, he's still been around 15 or so touches per game. We had 19 against the Rams, 15 against the Cardinals, 13 against the Commanders, 17 against the Texans.
Yeah.
Like that's still an ample amount of touches for a guy who's in a good matchup against the Titans. He's had at least 10 carries in every game this year. I don't think he all of a sudden goes down to, like 8 touches or something like that. And honestly, 15 touches is probably enough to have upside against the Titans. They stink.
Yeah. And I will say, Jeffrey Simmons is awesome. Like, this guy is just really, really good. And he can plug up all of the holes by himself on defense. And that's why the Tennessee Titans run defense isn't like they probably appear worse than they are, Greg, because they're just always playing from behind. You know what I mean? Like, they've allowed 15 rushing touchdowns on the year, but so much of that is because the defense is always on the field. Mm-hmm. But eventually you get worn down. Eventually you just get worn down. And they've allowed 5 runs of 40 plus this year. I think there's an argument to be made just because you pointed it out. Walker's still getting volume. You just haven't had that game. Any other guys that we are or aren't getting exposure to that you want to talk about at running back?
Let's look at the high end because we haven't really looked at the high end guys. Robbins, it's not really that much different from the Sims here. Robinson, 15% owned, showing up in 15% of lineups. Jahmyr Gibbs, 21.5% owned, showing up in 23% of lineups. The one guy here who I would want to be boosting the most is Barkley against the Cowboys, just because you're getting him at a price reduction compared to Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. He's only 13% owned as well at $7,500. I mentioned it before with the Eagles. I just think this game has a lot of shootout potential. I want to be overweight to a lot of the skill position players. And a $7,500 price tag relative to his historical pricing, it's pretty modest for Saquon Barkley. It's obviously been a down year for him and for all of the Eagles offensive players from a production standpoint. For the actual Eagles team, like you and I have talked about, they're the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl right now, and they're tied for first in the NFC. So things are not entirely bleak for the Philadelphia Eagles, but just because of what the fantasy production has been, there's kind of a negative outlook on them from the public and then some of the drama surrounding them as well. But I think $7,500 presents a lot of upside for Barkley at that salary.
I love it. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really like this spot, especially he's 13% owned. It is funny how he keeps getting ownership, even though he hasn't been productive. You don't see that all that often. And his price hasn't come down that much either. But I'd still be willing to get on board with that. Aside from him, I think it's tough to get to Quinshon Judkins just because I'm a big Quinshon Judkins fan, but until you have a quarterback, it's really tough. Like, you could just jam Quinshon Judkins 20 plus rushing attempts, but I don't know if it matters. And he's not involved in the passing game. Breece Hall, that he's going to have to produce in the passing game, you would think. Tough to get there. Chase Brown obviously looks great. Ashton Genty's got a very difficult matchup. Maybe he bounces back from last week, but that offense sucks, man. Javonte has a very tough matchup. I actually bet the under on his rushing yards this week against Philly. Jaylen Warren, if he plays. Derrick Henry would be the one other guy. And by the way, someone asked if we'd rather play Trevion or Kenneth Walker. Far different price points, but also we got to see if Ramondre is going to play. Like today, we'll know probably today or tomorrow if he's just in or out. So that makes a difference. But Derrick Henry is the one guy to me that I probably want to get a little more of. The problem is he's getting ownership. This is just the type of spot, man, where he could literally have 200 yards in the first half, or he could have like 60 total yards for the game, and they have 4 passing touchdowns, and Keaton Mitchell has the whole fourth quarter to himself.
Yeah, before we had the question where somebody said, will Quinn Williams make the Cowboys defense better going forward? And yeah, without doubt, you add somebody like that to your defense, it's going to make you better. The question we were just kind of going over then is, how much better does it make you? The inverse is, how shitty is the Jets defense without Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams going forward? And we don't know for sure, but on paper, it stands to reason probably pretty shitty. So Derrick Henry is another guy who presents some upside. Really, the only issue that I have with Derrick Henry is I prefer to play him on FanDuel to DraftKings this week, just because these other guys who he's priced around and also owned around as well. It'd be one thing if you were getting Derrick Henry at a far cheaper price point than some, or a far lesser ownership than some of these guys. But Henry is also 11% owned himself. So I generally prefer to play him on FanDuel, where the PPR doesn't really matter all that much. So Derrick Henry, he's in play, but I do prefer Robinson, Gibbs, and Barkley to him.
I really think Baltimore steamrolls them this week. Like,
wouldn't be shocking.
No, it's kind of the same argument I was making yesterday for Houston. Not that they steamroll the Bills, but that, they had a divisional game last week and they kind of sleptwalked through it. They got out of there with a win, but it was ugly, kind of not surprising. And then this last week also, Baltimore felt like they kind of sleptwalked through that game against the Browns, even though Myles Garrett's just a game wrecker. And then they came out with the win on that, kind of trick play to Mark Andrews, right? But now you have a non-divisional game at home where you could just come in and slaughter this Jets team. Like, we saw the defense against the Patriots without Sauce and without Quinnen Williams. I think, 2 games now? I can't remember, but they're so undisciplined. The only thing I hate is that the Baltimore Ravens may just drive the field on defensive pass interference and defensive holding calls, which would suck for fantasy. So, I mean, seriously, they're so undisciplined. But yeah, I can't. How much? Let's do this. Let's pivot over to wide receiver, because I'd like to see how much Zay Flowers we're getting.
So we're pretty spread out at wide receiver. Zay Flowers in 9% of lineups.
That's just one of those spots where I feel like I need to get over the field somewhere in Baltimore. I'm just not sure where yet.
Probably the biggest concern I have with Baltimore is if there's any team that's going to be apt to take starters out early, when you consider that the injury issues that Lamar Jackson had earlier in the game and just how easily winnable this game is, this could be one of these spots where just the starters come out like midway through the third quarter. And then that could cap some of the upside for these guys, particularly if the reason they're up by a lot is just because the Jets are so inept that the score is like 24-0, where it doesn't even take that many points for the Ravens offense for them to maybe have to come off the field. I still like getting to some of these guys. There's other spots I am going to prioritize a little bit more, though.
Yeah. It's the Seahawks and the Ravens that are driving me crazy, because both of these teams could drop 40 spots this week. And they might be able to do it in 3 quarters. I mean, I don't know. You're right. Maybe they pull them with fewer points, but what if they also just drive down the field and score on every drive through the first 3 quarters? It's a tough balance. So yeah, Zay Flowers, to me, it's hard not to like him this week. You saw Stephon Diggs, just so many easy receptions last week on Thursday against this Jets team. Just open every time, 9 for 105. It was just like they picked him apart, man. And I know they only finished with 27 points, but they should have had more. I don't know. Zay Flowers, to me, just he's kind of been dormant. This feels like the week where Zay Flowers could truly wake up in a spot like this. But yeah, they could spread the ball around. You could go to Andrews, likely, assuming Bateman is back. You could go to Rashad Bateman. There's a lot of different ways. It could just be a Henry game. It could be a Derrick Henry game. So I hear you. It's not easy. It's not an easy spot, but it's also like Baltimore could score 40 points in 3 quarters.
Yeah. I don't doubt that there's upside there. Just kind of hard to roster everybody. So I don't think I'm going to get it. I'll have some, but not a ton of exposure to the Ravens, I don't think.
Then where do you love wide receivers this week? Wow, we're really spread out.
Yeah, so for me, part of that's going to be because of the uniques. I think if we turn that off, we would see a little bit more concentrated ownership on some spots. But for myself, JSN, just somebody who I've been clicking every single slate the entire year. So Jackson Smith and Jigba, who might end up breaking the wide receiver yardage record and still not win Offensive Player of the Year because of the year that Jonathan Taylor's having, which would be crazy if somebody sets the all-time record for receiving. Also, might be the first wide receiver ever to have 2,000 receiving yards. Has never happened before. JSN's on pace to do that.
He's got to do it in 17 weeks, though, or I don't count it, Greg.
You don't count it. You're gonna go out with your tiki torch and march the streets and try to get the record overturned.
I won't be upset about it, but I just would discredit it. I mean, if nothing else, clearly an asterisk. Like, OJ Simpson did it in 14 games. Technically, he's the true GOAT. Great guy and great football player. Overall, just good man.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hero. He's somebody to aspire to for sure, but not everybody can be that great to do it in 14 games. It's so hard, though, where there's so many different generational aspects that you could pick at and say, like, does this record count here that you can do in any sport? It's like with baseball. Yeah, baseball, they didn't used to let minorities play in the league. Like, that altered what the competition was. Then they changed the amount of games. So it's so hard to compare era to era across all sports for a variety of different reasons. Like, obviously 17 games is an advantage, but at the same point in time too, you had a point in time where games were also quite a bit higher scoring. So, like, there's so many push and pulls with.
Oh, come on, dude. They throw the ball so much more than they used to.
Yeah, except there's still a point in time where there was higher scoring games like 10 years ago, but when there was still 16 game seasons also.
All right. Well, I don't count it. I mean, he can do it in 16. Like Barkley did. Barkley did it in 16 last year, so it counts. Whatever. But there was a comment though that I actually thought was really interesting from Muhammad, and I do agree with this. And this is always scary to me. He said Seahawks can score 20 just off defense and special teams. We actually saw that the other week where they went up against Washington. No, it was Arizona, and Sam Darnold threw 12 times. And fortunately, Jackson Smith and Jigba had a 50% target share, and he caught a touchdown, and he had 5 for 93 and a score. But I mean, he was just not involved after the first quarter. It was really a crazy game where you saw what the defense was doing, and you just go, shit, like this isn't going to work.
Yeah, JSN. I mean, you were referencing JSN looked like he was going to break the slate in the first quarter of last game, and then, or was it two games ago? 2 weeks ago, I mean, and then just didn't have to get the ball the rest of the game because they didn't throw. By the way, one more thing, just because I pulled this up. This is just kind of a complete aside, but receiving yards per game. Teams are averaging 213.2 receiving yards per game in 2025. 10 years ago in 2015, teams averaged 243.8 passing yards, receiving yards per game. So teams were getting an extra 30 receiving yards per game 10 years ago. So the 16-game season at that point in time, actually in terms of total receiving yards, was more advantageous just based on the rate of receiving yards players had compared to now. So that's it. There's just so many things that make it difficult to compare across time.
All right. But then we'd have to be like, well, what about all of the good players and their teams? How many were they averaging back then, and how many are they averaging now?
But that's why it's I don't take records too seriously. The numbers just kind of are what they are. But that's why it's so hard to just take one variable and be like, well, there's 17 games as opposed to 16 games. Like, yeah, but look at how yardage used to be amassed a few years ago, where you can make a case that it was actually easier in 16 games to get more receiving yards in 2025 than it was to get 2,000 plus receiving yards in 2025 in an extra game.
I get it. There's just too many variables, because then I could be like, well, maybe there's just way more bad teams now, and they bring the average down. So I don't know. Like, again, it doesn't. Who cares about the records, really? Jackson Smith and Jigba is having a historic season, and I'll definitely play him this week. But I don't want to jam him. It sounds odd. I don't want to really jam JSN, because if this game does just go wildly out of control, they might not need him all that much. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot. I like Javonte Williams in the same game. Or sorry, Jameson Williams in the same game. You made some great points on Alec Pierce earlier in the week, and I agree with you there. His target share, air yards, all of that over the last month, he's leading the team in all of that. You have Michael Wilson with Marvin Harrison Jr. already ruled out. He's 4,800. We talked about both of the Philadelphia Eagles receivers. Rashee Rice has a tough matchup, but it's still Rashee Rice at home as a favorite with a high implied total in what could also be a shootout. I mean, there really are a lot of quality players. And look, I'll say it again. I know we're not getting a lot of them, but CeeDee Lamb just appears to be going overlooked in a spot like this. And that game could shoot out too. So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, Alec Pierce, which you just mentioned him there. We had this conversation about him on Wednesday, but he's probably better than you guys think that he's been so far this year. And he's also, as of late, getting probably a lot more work than you guys have realized as well. Now, I could be unfairly categorizing some of you guys, but the reason I do think this makes sense in general is Alec Pierce would have been way more popular in recent DFS slates if everybody was aware of the kind of usage he's been getting for this team, because over the last 4 games, 7 targets, 13 targets, 5 targets, 10 targets, ADOT, we're seeing those targets be valuable ones that he's getting downfield. Alec Pierce has just flat out been good this season, and his role is ramping up over the course of the season as well, to the point where he's playing like a legit number 1 wide receiver role for the Colts right now. So at 5K and single-digit ownership, I do like getting to him.
Yeah, I see it. Hey, by the way, we got Thanksgiving coming up, man. We got Thanksgiving slate. We got the Black Friday slate. You got the Sunday slate. If you were to pull up the NFL schedule, there's just no better time right now to be playing NFL DFS, because you're coming, like, these end up being the best possible times of the year. Actually, I'll show you something real quick. This is what gets me very excited, Greg. So week 12, we already know this is pretty par for the course. But then week 13, you got the Thursday games, you got Black Friday, you got the Sunday full slate. And then if you look at where is it? Hold on, I'll show you. Is it week 14? Thursday night, and then normal Sunday, right? That's where is it? I have a point here. Where are the Saturday games? When do they start popping up? Don't we start getting some crazy, awesome slates coming up? I thought it was actually going to. Here it is. Yeah. Christmas week, Saturday, doubleheader. Packers, Bears, Eagles, Commanders. Then the Sundays, week 17. I think you probably have more of those Saturday games. So I say all of this because, we got 2 Christmas Day games. Mm-hmm. We got 3 Christmas Day games. We got a night game on Christmas Day. See what I'm saying? This is the best, man. The reason I mention that is because if you were looking to get access to the Sims tools, today's what, the 21st? Yep. You're getting, if you were to sign up with 2 of our sportsbook partners, just 2 of them, and that's like $5-10 a piece to deposit, you're getting all of these Saturdays, the Christmas days, the big Sundays, the Monday slates, the Black Friday, the Thanksgiving slates, getting access to all of that stuff, man. And all you're doing is using that link in the description, right? To get the core Sims, it's $130 per month. You're getting it by just simply clicking claim offer on any of these. You got to do that. Signing up, make a $5 or $10 minimum deposit. If you want, Onyx is in 40 plus states. If you're in non-legal betting states, you get all these pick'em sites as well. Pick your poison. Then just take screenshots of your welcome email and your first settled bet and email us at support@stokastic.com with screenshots. Tell us what you want. That's it. Say, hey, I signed up on Onyx. I spent 10. I got 100 in bonus picks. I also signed up on, say you're not on FanDuel yet. I deposited 5. I bet 5. I got $300 in bonus bets, which is ridiculous. And I'd like 2 months of NFL, or can I get a full month of NFL and a full month of NBA? That's it. No better way to do it. No easier way to do it. So if you haven't yet, you can get access to all of these tools for all of these sports and be in business. I mean, we had another Millie winner this week. That's our 4th of the season. And I'm not saying you're going to jump in and immediately win the Millie, but like Einsteinium crushed in this one. And we had David with the massive finish there, 50K, 15K, 3K, all in the same contest. And then a couple days later, takes down the college football one, because our college football sims are insane as well, for 50K. And that was just last week. So I could go through all of these, but I won't waste your time. You get the idea. Just truly an awesome product. I think we have the best tools in the industry, and you can get them for free. There's no other site that's allowing you to jump in, take 10, 15 minutes of your time to sign up and deposit and place a bet and get these tools for free for months on end.
If you need any proof, too, that we're having more success than anybody else this year, just look up every Sunday, or really every NBA slate this year. Just look up at the top of the standings. It's been for NBA and NFL. Those are, the two main sports going on right now, just littered with stochastic avatars.
Everywhere, man. Everywhere. So that's the way to do it. Someone asked, where is this? Because it's a fair question. Basically said, why aren't you talking about Cardinals players? I just mentioned Wilson. We haven't gotten to McBride yet, but he's pretty obvious. At this point, McBride should be like 8K. Here it is. Deuce Trey. Why none of y'all talking about Cardinal stacks? Look, the Cardinals stacks are perfectly in play this week. I think they might be over-owned because of what we saw last week. I don't know, Greg. How much Jacoby Brissett do we have?
Pretty good amount. He was showing up in 9% of lineups, our second most rostered quarterback after we did the uniques, just behind Patrick Mahomes. I also think he's probably going to be even more popular than what he's projected to be. People are going to chase these points like crazy. He just set the record for completions in a game. The Millie Maker last week, it was something like 16 of the top 20 lineups were Jacoby Brissett Cardinal stacks. I think that people are going to want to jam Brissett and Michael Wilson. Understandably, I think they're both decent options, or I should say very good options relative to their salary. I just think they're going to be super popular and in a way that's even hard to project.
Yeah, I hear you. Michael Wilson's still too cheap, though. There's no denying that. He's still sub 5K is a pretty ridiculous price point for Michael Wilson. I wish he wasn't that cheap because it would make the slate better, honestly. Greg Dortch is what, like 4,200 now or something? 4,300. And, Deuce said McBride's 8,500 on FanDuel, SMH. He should be, though. Like, he should be 8,500 on FanDuel. The fact that he's 6,800 on DraftKings is actually pretty insane. He's a lot better with Jacoby Brissett. It's just true. He is. Like, the amount, one of you guys could look it up for me and tell me how many touchdowns McBride has throughout his career playing with Kyler Murray and how many he has with Jacoby Brissett. This dude Jacoby Brissett started 5 games now, and Trey McBride has 6 touchdowns.
After not scoring them at all. Like, not only not scoring them in the NFL, not scoring them in college or high school either.
Yeah, I know. Jacoby Brissett cracked the code. It's insane. And look, last year he didn't have a receiving touchdown till what, like week 15 or something. He had 2 receiving touchdowns last year, and I'm pretty sure they were in like the final 2 weeks of the season or something.
Kyler Murray had to go out of his way and made a public. Trey McBride had a record set for most catches without a touchdown. Like, he set an NFL record, and it got to the point where it became such a story that Kyler Murray, prior to games at the end of the season, was like, we are going to get Trey McBride a touchdown this week. Like, it was a mission of the team. We are going to get Trey McBride a touchdown. It's one of the rare times that there was a narrative that I thought was definitely worth betting on. I don't know if you remember this, but we did bet on this towards the tail end of last year.
I remember.
And it was because the Cardinals and Kyler Murray were like, yeah, we have to get Trey McBride a touchdown. This is ridiculous. And by the way, it turns out that all it really takes to get Trey McBride a touchdown, you just throw him the ball in the red zone. Like, it was as simple as that. Jacoby Brissett does it more this year, and he scores more touchdowns. That's all there was to it.
He had 5 touchdowns through his first 54 career games, and he has 6 over his last 5.
I want to check how many red zone targets he's had. He might have more red zone targets with Jacoby Brissett as his for his entire career than with Kyler Murray as his quarterback.
I can pull it up real quick if you want. I'm already on the page.
Just logically, they have to be way up.
Yeah, so here, I'll tell you right now. So last year, Trey McBride on the season. Dude, this is going to be nuts. Last year on the season, Trey McBride had 22 red zone targets. Okay. 22 red zone targets. This year with Jacoby Brissett. So what is it? Weeks 6 through 11?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there you go. So weeks 6 through 11, he has.
And so one thing while you're adding it up,
Yeah,
week 8
go
was
ahead.
also a bye week for them. So one of the games they didn't even play.
Right. So I'm just taking the 5 games, right?
Yeah.
So weeks 6 through 11, 5 games. He has 16.
Yeah. So in 5 games with Jacoby Brissett, 16 red zone targets compared to the entirety of last season. He had 22.
Yep. Unbelievable. Contrarian, it wasn't a rushing touchdown last year. The one that he had, it was actually a fumble recovery in the end zone, because I remember Ben bet him the score and he got it that way. But Rooster, Cardinals running back Carter is the play for me. Only healthy running back they have, and 7 targets last week. I guess, yeah, if you want to look at Michael Carter, I also want to see how this shakes out for them as far as the injuries go. I'm not sure who's actually in or out yet for these guys. Trey Benson, I don't think he is expected to come back yet. So there's that. But that's the spot that I'm looking at. And I don't know if Bam Knight's going to play.
Yeah, Bam Knight being out would not make a difference to my DFS exposures this weekend, I don't think.
No? I mean,
I don't think so.
All right, so hear me out, though, because I think he actually makes a reasonable point here. You have Trey Benson on the IR if he doesn't come back. If Zonovan Knight is out, DeMercado's already out. James Conner's done for the season. It is possible that Michael Carter honestly just ends up seeing a ton of work. He's $4,400.
Yeah, maybe. So I guess I'll say we need a little bit more information. I tend to think they'll just find other guys to call up from the practice squad and give touches to.
They'd find guys to call up, but I'm pretty sure Michael Carter would just be the top. He would be the lead back by a mile.
It seems like no matter what, they always try to find other guys to give touches to other than Michael Carter. He sucks.
He had 18 carries in week 5. He's not good, yeah, but neither is anyone else. He had 18 carries in week 5.
He's averaging 2.7 yards per carry, and there's a reason why he had those 18 carries, and then they've progressively given him less and less carries every week since. They just try to give other people to give touches to. So I'm saying that even in the event, like if they don't call up people, sure, different kind of story. I tend to think, though, he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry this year. I think he's been so unproductive that even practice squad guys they call up, I still think they're going to want it to be a split with Michael Carter. I could be wrong. If the props end up looking way different, I'll change my opinion on that. But at least as of right now, I find it hard to think that they're going to give an RB1 sort of workload to Michael Carter.
I guess it just depends. Like if Jamar Jefferson is in there, this guy was like the 4th string running back in Detroit, and he's not good. So we'll see. I don't know. Carter played 43% of stats. Well, it doesn't matter right now. Just I do think it's something worth keeping an eye on. If everyone else ends up being out, for sure. Matt Corsetti, no one wants to play Sanders. LOL, cheap stack. Yeah, it's a cheap stack for a reason.
Yeah, his last I looked, the passing yard prop on Shedeur Sanders is 158.5 yards.
So Justin Fields without the rushing upside?
Pretty much. Although the funny thing is I did jam Justin Fields on a showdown slate when his passing yardage prop was 138.5, but
so
that was a one-game slate.
That was a showdown slate, yeah. And we know that he can run, and he ran a touchdown in. So he might have he ran one in. Faceless Man, on your Sims product, can you just let it run, say, 20 tournament lineups, or is it best to tweak exposure? Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. I still don't hate the idea of changing uniques a little bit, but yes, you absolutely can do that. Yeah, I mean, it is set up where you could just run it like that. You don't have. I would actually advise against making a ton of tweaks, especially if you're doing them arbitrarily without really any idea what you're doing.
Yeah. You are going to get the best results in all likelihood by not making as many changes to the Sims. It doesn't mean you can't.
I agree.
But a lot of people, I mean, we see it in chat all the time. We were talking about it the other day where we had at least 2 people in chat said that last week they did not like the look of their Jacoby Brissett triple stacks and went out of their way to remove them from their lineups in the Sims last week, because the Sims were jamming Jacoby Brissett double and triple stacks. And a lot of people were like, I don't want Jacoby Brissett double and triple stacks. And they're taking them out. And then they had, remorse about it afterwards.
The one I saw pop up the most in chat, it already popped up again this morning, was people didn't want to play Teteroa McMillan.
Yeah.
And he ended up going on. Oh, and he was in the Millie lineup too, along with that Jacoby triple stack. So yeah. And that's why, like, the reason on this show, Greg, that I try and approach everything like semi-cautiously is because if we do update data and we get more news and stuff, it's just possible that maybe Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt aren't going to be as chalky, right? So, and they're not as chalky, but that we aren't going to get as much of them. So I don't want someone to watch this show and then not be around on Sunday to watch the show when we say, oh yeah, we updated projections and this guy's out and this guy's out. So now we're getting a lot less Kamara and Hunt. That's all. So that's typically why I approach it from that angle. Do you want to look at tight ends?
Yeah, let's look at the Trey McBride position, where look at the gap between him and everybody else from just a projection standpoint. But Brock Bowers is back and healthy now and looking good. And Trey McBride still projects for 5 more fantasy points than him.
That's insane, dude. I wonder where McBride ranks in fantasy points since Brissett took over.
Probably pretty high. I'll see if I could ask ChatGPT really quick. I'll just ask which players are averaging, which I don't even know if it's going to have this data, but I guess the most DraftKings fantasy points since what, week 7?
Since week 6. Because it's got to be up there. Got to be. There's no doubt about it. It's just,
all right. Yeah, it wasn't able to pull this information easily. So nix that. I thought maybe I'd be able to get it in like 5 seconds, but not the case.
Well, even on the season at Flex, he's got to be up there. So, he's top, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's 14th on the season in fantasy point PPR points per game. And that doesn't include the last however many weeks. So I'm with you on that. You know who I do like a lot, though? I like Hunter Henry. The Bengals have been so bad against tight ends, and Hunter Henry is sub 4K in this spot. I really like him this week, just given how cheap he is. And this Patriots team, I think, has the highest implied total of any single team on the slate. So I like him. I like Goddard this week. Kelsey, I like as well, especially with those 2 corners in Indianapolis. So while I do like Trey McBride, of course, I actually like the 5K Kelsey. I like the $3,900 Hunter Henry. I like the $4,200 Dallas Goedert. There's a few guys that actually, to me, stand out as decent plays. Noah Fant as well. Mike Gesicki's 21-day practice window was open, so we'll have to see if he actually is activated off the IR. And he was a full participant yesterday. So if he ends up playing, then I like Noah Fant a lot less, and I probably won't target the tight ends. But if they sit him one more week, I think Noah Fant's pretty viable as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got him just at $3,100. No Jamar Chase, like you mentioned. There's a lot of good tight ends to consider. Kind of funny, the one guy who I'm probably not going to end up playing that could end up regretting is Tyler Loughran. Wow. Now that he's 5,500, he's had a monster rookie season. It's just, if I'm going to be paying up that much at tight end, I'd just rather be getting to Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, who are just as good as Tyler Warren's been this year. He's not quite on their level as a fantasy asset yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he is in a year or 2, but not quite now.
Well, what about Pitts? Because this one, Rand said if there's ever a week for him, it's this one. I thought the same thing when Drake London was out and Kirk Cousins was starting against Miami, and they were absolutely terrible. I mean, it's just serious. There was a stat that I heard where, like, Kirk Cousins' last touchdown pass was, I'd have to figure this out. Like, he's played however many quarters without a single touchdown pass. It's really gotten bad. I wish I had the stat on hand, but whatever it is, it's so bad. So I don't know. Like I like the tight end position enough this week where you guys should play Pitts because I won't play as much, and then he'll end up having a huge game.
So the last 8 games that Kirk Cousins has played, and he has 1 passing touchdown.
Isn't that crazy? How is that possible?
He's just bad at this point in his career. 37 years old, coming off the torn Achilles from a couple of years ago. That's something that's very difficult for players to, like meaningfully come back from. And yeah, Kirk Cousins has just been awful. And there's no reason to think it's going to get better. Could he have like individual spots where he looks okay? Like, could he have a competent fantasy game against the Saints? Sure, it's the Saints, but it's hard to be too invested in the Falcons passing game considering what we've seen out of Cousins this year. I mean, you look at the game that he had last week against the Panthers where Penix gets banged up. Cousins comes in the game and goes 16 of 14 passing for 48 yards.
He's terrible, man. Like, he's really terrible at this point. So we'll see how it goes. Those are the tight ends I like, though. I'll sprinkle a little Mark Andrews, maybe some Isaiah Likely, just because that matchup is so good. But that's kind of what I like this week.
What's funny, too, is I'm just looking through his numbers. One of those games he started, he actually had in a revenge spot, 344 passing yards against the Vikings, but still had no touchdowns in that game.
Amazing. It's bad. So, well, Drake London's not expected to play, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know if it's anything about like that Miami game. It's just going to be terrible. Anyway, I assume, Greg, you've got some bets posted for today already?
Yeah, I've got some bets posted, by the way. Very funny. Jake DeWitt saying last Kirk touchdown was before COVID. Yeah. His last touchdown was during SARS. That was the outbreak going on, the last Kirk Cousins touchdown. I have bets posted over on Tails. We'll be posting more throughout the day. And then, of course, all of the weekend content and bets that Loughran and I will be doing. Loughran does a ton of football content and bets that get posted over on Tails. So download the Tails app or just go to tails.bet. You get all the stuff we post there totally free. So there's no reason to not take advantage of it. We actually had a big winning parlay that got posted from the OddsShopper Portfolio EV Tools that went up on Tails. Saw one person had tailed that and sent us the screenshot of winning. It was like $400 something off a minimal bet just from tailing one of the parlays from the EV tool. So yeah, all different kinds of content you're going to find for free over at OddsShopper, over on Tails.
Yeah, man. Use the link down there. Download the app. Search me, Loughran. Search Greg. Is it probably G. Ehrenberg, right?
Just Greg, and you'll find me.
Greg. Yeah, I got bets up for Sunday already. So I got sides up. We got a bunch of those. I got a nice little 2-leg parlay on alt lines. So yeah, our Woody Marks bet hit pretty easily yesterday. This was a 2-unit play actually for me. I don't typically do that. So yeah, we got a ton of stuff up, man. It's awesome. And if you follow us, you can turn on notifications and then one-click these bets. Like, say you're with me this week and you actually like the Javonte Williams under at, 67.5 yards. You can come in, find the best number, and boom, one-click tail it. It'll add it straight into your bet slip. It's a beautiful thing. So, yeah. Hey, but as you guys leave, can you do me a favor? When you leave, can you hop into the App Store real quick and leave us a rating and a review for the Tails app? Just type Tails into there and then go in and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. If you have a second, if you're heading out, as we are right now, if you enjoy the content, you enjoy the show, you enjoy the app, can you leave us a review? That's all I ask. Thank you. We'll see you guys back here on Sunday. Of course, live before lock, deeper dive tonight for NBA. I assume it's Friday or it's Thursday, so I don't know how big the slate is, but I know it's Friday. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Should be a big slate on Friday. And then we'll catch you back here. Big stream on Sunday. Make sure this is your destination. Of course, follow Greg at Ehrenberg DFS on Twitter, me at Loughran, and we'll see you back here for the next one. Bye-bye.